I bow down to the divinity in each person who's watching this webinar. So much gratitude and so much appreciation for your brilliance and for the collective intent to rewrite the rules for creating wealth in such a way that wealth is something accessible to everyone, and it's for the sake of everyone, not just for the sake of a few. Thank you for being with me tonight. Oh, and I can't forget, thank you to the eternal tradition of knowledge, the cosmic, universal tradition of knowledge, of wisdom. All right, let's begin. So tonight's webinar is about manifesting prosperity. And I have a whole slew of notes, but as you all know, it's my intention to stick closer to the needs of this group than to my notes. So I'm feeling into the group just to see what the needs of this particular moment are. All right, so the first thing that we want to do then is look into the definition of wealth a little more deeply. We need to understand it in a way that we have not previously understood. And also the process of creating wealth. Because the process, wealth itself in its own nature, and we can use lots of words, and I was going in today and really examining the energy frequencies of the different words that we use for wealth, you know, such as financial freedom or opulence or affluence, or I have a whole list of them over here. And as I was going through this list, you know, making a list of these different expressions for wealth, what I decided was that the word wealth itself is very simple. Also, I think it's important to note right here at the beginning that wealth alone isn't enough to provide that real happiness, right? That what we're looking for in wealth are some of those other qualities that I just mentioned, like financial freedom, for example. Financial freedom basically means living within your means. So, but affluence means living way within your means. So today we want to look at the creation or the manifestation of affluence. Because we don't just want to live within means. Living within means is good, but we want to live within means so comfortably that whatever happens at any time, you know, if you need to get a new car, or, you know, you want to go do something special, or maybe there's a cause that you would like to donate to and you want to really make a difference in people's lives, that kind of thing. That level of fullness that results in not only living within one's means, but having the ability to expand the wealth into the field of the collective to do good for the whole world. So this comes to like a really important point that I was thinking about with regards to wealth, and that is that the nature of wealth and the nature of obtaining wealth for a very long time has conformed to specific rules of behavior. I mean, you can get wealthy by robbing a bank, but I know that nobody here has the desire to attain wealth through illegal or, you know, immoral means. We want to obtain wealth through life-supporting means. So the rules have been set hundreds of years ago. The rules were set that determine how wealth is obtained and how we function in the world and the game of finance in order to have and to create and to produce wealth. And what we're doing, the way energy work interfaces with this, is that, oh, I didn't do my little introduction to energy work, but I think tonight, I think everybody has been here before and you know what it is. So we need to redefine the rules. This is what energy work does. Energy work says we're going to take the rules that were established back in the 1400s, or whenever most of these rules were established. I think it was around the time of the Renaissance and Baroque period in Europe was when a lot of the rules that we're still following for making wealth were established, and expand the definition of how wealth is created to embrace nature's structuring and the ability to create from consciousness, because that's what energy healing is. Energy healing is healing from consciousness, and in this case, in manifesting from consciousness. So I thought it would be interesting to kind of look at some of the old rules and compare to some of the new rules as a means of defining what we're doing here tonight, sort of framing it up. So I made a whole list of different old rules and new rules. And going to the highest first, well, the first one is that someone in society, some societal structure makes the rules of how we obtain wealth. And what we're doing tonight is, the new rule is that everything that's manifested is manifested through functions of natural law. And somebody in society doesn't make that rule. We all own that rule individually. We all own it through the source of our own connection to creation. And what we're doing is we're looking to align ourselves with that rule. And this is the point where I really want to bring out some information. Our collective, the collective of our webinar needs to take just a little look at this new picture. Oh, this one. These are the mountains of Las Vegas. Aren't they beautiful? Look at that. Wow. So, just like in a house, different rooms are good for different activities. It turns out when I was in Las Vegas last month, and a big shout out to the group in Las Vegas, thank you all for being here tonight, and thank you for having the brilliance of holding that sacred space for Las Vegas. The intelligence in these mountains is specific for the manifestation of wealth. So what we're doing right now is we're repositioning tonight's webinar at this mountain. Energetically, as a collective, we're going and sitting with the mountain tonight. This is why people from all over the world come to Las Vegas to test their luck. Because the laws of nature are so lively there that if a person positions properly, they can go from being poor to being wealthy in an instant. The thing about that is that when it happens very quickly, with a lot of, like with the wind behind you, with the support of natural law behind you, sometimes people understand that they feel like they're in the zone and they realize that luck is with them, but they don't really understand the meatiness, the depth of those laws of nature. So we're going to sit here at the mountain for a minute, and I think I'm going to scooch over just a little so you can see how glorious this thing is. It's beautiful. And just bowing down to the soul of Earth's intelligence in this area with all gratitude. And here's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing that the Earth intelligence in the area of Las Vegas has cords or threads that are connecting to other locations. And so what's really happening there is it's kind of like a node in the web of life matrix. And it's drawing a lot of energy from the sun. It's also, it's also drawing energy through the air. There's a quality in the air here that's like, we know the air is kind of like the soul of everyone, the soul of life on earth, the breath of life. There's a lightness and a quickness in the air. And when the sun warms it up, it breathes a quality of energy which is infused with excitement and great creativity and infinite potential is worked into that mix. So this is an energetic structure that and this is, look, I was there. I took that picture, you know. So I stood by this mountain and I understand what's going on here, but I didn't see it the way I see it now with all of us together. It's our collective, which is allowing this deeper understanding. We're looking in, like under the microscope, at the seed of wealth, at the seed of wealth. There's a story I wanted to tell you. Let's see. I have so many notes. The question is, where does that story come in? Well, I'll just tell you the story anyway. Oh yes, it has to do with the old and the new, with the old rules and the new rules. The old rules allowed people to create wealth from more of a superficial level of kind of pushing at the environment, you know, negotiating with people and working within these certain constraints, you know, like, oh, how can I make my product so it's a little bit less expensive for me to make, and I can bump the price up, make it seem more valuable to the customer, so I bump the price up, that kind of thing, like that level of cleverness, right? But the new rule, what is the new rule? Right. The new rule is to coordinate with nature's laws so that it's as if the wind is behind your back, and have this beautiful experience that connects with that. And I think it helps to illustrate it really nicely. And that is that I recently became aware of a business here in Fairfield. For those of you who live in Fairfield, if anybody knows Hendersons, the framing shop down on the square. It's kind of a little place, really. Hendersons, it's one of those places that's got a little storefront that goes way back like that, and way in the back of Hendersons where there's no windows at all, there's this little tiny like back room that's kind of like a little storage room sort of. And so Hendersons decided that they could rent that out to somebody. So they rented it out to this little company that was working in solar. They were working in solar, and it was just this little tiny room, and they had like 2 guys working in there, you know, and then pretty soon they needed a 3rd guy. So 3 guys, 3 computers, and like 2 little desks, you know. This was a year ago. Today, that company has over $160 million worth of sales that are in process, that they're working on, and they've got a big, glorious space that's just filled with, you know, they've got over a dozen people working there, and it's expanding in every direction, and the oldest person in the company is 32 years old. What did they do? What happened to that little, what happened in that dark little back storage room of Henderson's Framing shop? What happened back there that catapulted these kids from being in a little closet practically doing their work to all of a sudden they've got a lot going on. They've got a lot going on. And it's very interesting because nature really supported them. The reason they ended up with, in 1 month, they ended up with all these sales, this over $100 million worth of sales, is because the local energy company was going to change its policy. And it used to be that you could buy solar, and then if your house created more energy than it used, you could roll that energy over. And now pretty soon, like April 1st was the deadline, they were going to stop that. So all of a sudden, lots of people wanted to get grandfathered in the old system. Well, April 1st came along, and within like a couple hours at the end of March, the energy company said, oh, we're going to extend the deadline another month. Ooh, that was like the solar company wasn't expecting that. They have a whole nother month now to do another $167 million worth of sales. So what's beautiful about it is how nature rose up to support them. So what we want to look at tonight is how can we organize ourselves to be at that level of flow? Part of what's happening is, in the past, adaptability wasn't a really important quality for making money. It was more about stability. It was more about the connections that you had. It was more about your creativity. Creativity is still a big deal, but this adaptability quality is major. Because in this day and age, we have a knowledge explosion going on Earth, and we have technology whose potential has not yet been completely exploited. So what we're really looking at is how quickly can anybody get in and utilize technology in such a way with their creativity to come up with ideas that are really going to support the production of wealth in a way like never before, And it's available to everyone. We all, for the most part, everybody on this webinar has access to the internet. So the resources are already present. All your resources are present. There's a question. Oh, yes, I knew that. I knew that question had been asked before I opened my question box. Thank you. So I think the first thing that we'd like to do, the question is from my team, is it time for healing yet? Because we want to do lots of healing. We want to make the adjustments. The first thing that we did was we repositioned our group. So everybody's sitting at the feet of this amazing being, which is this incredible mountain in Las Vegas. And the being itself is a completely free flow of all the information that you need at all levels of subtlety of your consciousness to provide you with the resources for producing maximum wealth. So everybody is receiving the radiance of the knowledge from the laws of nature in this area of the country. And of course, to our big group that are holding that home, that are holding Las Vegas as their home, you know, these individuals are soaking in it all the time. So while that's going on, I'm just watching the healing. So here's the report, everybody. And again, what a privilege it is for me to report to you. I love this. I mentioned before that I noticed tonight, as we're sitting in the presence of this particular arrangement of laws of nature, this particular a collection of energy frequencies that are specific for the ability of going from a dark little closet in the back of Hendersons to being mega wealthy, that this being draws upon the life web in a very specific way. It's created itself into a kind of node of intelligence, a node of collected qualities, fundamentals of consciousness. And so there's a pattern in the beams of consciousness that are coming into this, I'm going to call it a deva, the deva of this mountain, which means the life intelligence, the life force in the Las Vegas area. Yes, we love you. Hello, everybody in Las Vegas. You guys are the best. Everybody's the best. Everybody here. No favorites, but I love everybody. Anyway, what's happening is a restructure for everyone's physiology at the astral level, and it looks like it's like right between kind of the astral and the emotional. There you go. There's the emotional level of the physiology, right between those two levels. Oh, wow. Oh, she's saying that that's ironic and amazing. Sorry, did everybody see this on the chat? It went out to everyone. Hi, everyone. Sending love to all from Las Vegas. Our area is actually called Henderson. Dang. Isn't that cool? Okay, well, there you go. It's no coincidence. There's probably something in the sound resonations of that word Henderson that has some kind of special quality. Betcha. Anyway. Oh, yes. Anyway, getting back to the healing here, there's a certain combination of inputs and outputs energetically to the energetic field of the physiology from cosmic regions, because the knowledge that creates these rocks back here, you know, this is a multi-million or billion-year process creating these rocks. And so the particular combination of energy beams of consciousness which have culminated in this area has sort of evolved over the long course of time. So using that, and it's a cosmic process, so using that as a blueprint, each person in this healing session is receiving that particular combination. And I mean, I can see it. And one of the things I'm seeing as this restructuring of the input and output of the physiology energetically is, it seems as if a certain amount at this time, and okay, several pieces of information coming in at once, pardon me, as I'm trying to sort and speak at the same time. Number one, it changes. Right now, the input-output looks a certain way. And what the mountain is saying with the laws of nature, the intelligence, the Davic intelligence is saying, is that this is appropriate for this time in history right now. That a little bit more, the energy flow is coming into the left brain area and the left side of the physiology. And it's interesting because left brain controls the right side of the body, right? But it's the logical reasoning, you know, verbal side of the brain. But the left side of the body is the feminine inner side of the physiology. So both of those two aspects are being activated at the same time, but one of them is being activated more on the level of the brain itself, and the other is being activated more on the level of the quality of the way that intelligence is applied. So it's really good, strong left brain intelligence, logic, reason, time management, use of technology, resources like that. But at the same time, it's applied at this time in history, very important, with such delicacy, such tenderness, such sweetness, with that compassion. And that brings me to another old and new rule. One of the old rules is that you have to look out for number one. We're looking out for number one. And of course, the new rule is that what's provided in order to bring wealth, to attract wealth in, is for the sake of everyone. That wealth is, we look out for everyone. We look out for all of our brothers and sisters and friends and relations and everybody, because everybody needs and deserves and has the potential to manifest wealth at a really high level. At a really high level. So I used my description of tonight's webinar, which was a little more wordy and complete, I guess, than some of my previous webinar descriptions, as a kind of outline. And one of the areas, once we'd kind of established what is wealth, the second part is we need to look at what are the blockages to wealth. And I mentioned in there karma also, but this is coming up on the table right now as another healing. And I think it's really important that one of the things we're working with when we're working at how we manifest different effects in our world is the way we interface with our own virtual futures. Because from the present moment, we're looking at an infinite number of possible directions that we can go at any given point. And if we think of what one would be, what you would be, think about what you would be, like say 5 years down the road, if starting now, you did everything you knew to be right. You did everything that you knew would bring success. You know, starting with simple inward things like diet, exercise, and rest, and then moving on to the more sort of complex aspects of life, like life choices and, you know, being at the right place at the right time, that kind of thing. If we had ourselves aligned up where one could be in 5 to 10 years, you know, like look at the guys who are running the solar company in 1 year. It's amazing. They just made the right moves. They had themselves together. They had themselves sorted out. They were clear where they were going. And I can tell you, last month, when they found out that the local energy company was going to change their rules, they got really organized. So what we want to do here is we want to, for the sake of everybody in this healing and everybody who will watch in the future, we want to restructure and upgrade the ability to do that, to just sort out the details of life in such a way, organize oneself, simplify oneself in such a way so that at each point one is maximizing the efficient use of time. One is working smart, not hard. One is thinking in terms of creating wealth for everyone, not just for one's own self. One is becoming master of the rules by which wealth is created. Mastering the rules by which wealth is created. Well, that's a nice word. Thank you, everyone, for that word. I think that's where we're going to go next. So, first of all, I'm just checking into any little spots or blockages. I told you that's where we're going to go next because I don't want to forget, but we need to do the healing work to help everyone kind of sort themselves out. We need everyone to sort themselves out. This is important. So I'm looking for what's happening is celestial body is resonating with orderliness, simplicity, and balance. And as that happens, that provides the foundation for the collective level of the physiology to start bringing up the levels of your intelligence, of our intelligence, at that level that are responsible for establishing the ability to align activity and behavior and thinking and speech. Activity, behavior, thinking, and speech. There are 4 of them. 4 levels of intelligence. The overriding, the presiding intelligence of activity, the presiding intelligence of behavior, of speech, and thinking. Is that all of them? Yeah. And in that, we're going to speech. Now, the intelligence of speech sits right here in the neck. And what I'm seeing is for a lot of people, there's been some chaos. Also, a lot of people hold guilt in this spot here. And another thing people tend to hold in this area are unspoken, not speaking out their truth. And another thing is some of self-speech. Sometimes the words that we speak that aren't like self-supporting. So the chaos, I'm just going to call it chaos. The chaos in this area. We could break it down, but the important thing is that this orderliness and balance and simplicity is coming into the neck, throat, vocal mechanism area of the physiology. This is also a very interesting area of the physiology because this is where the administrator of life interfaces with the, we'd say that the chief interfaces with the Indians. Not to be ethnocentric in any way, but that's just an old saying, chiefs and Indians. Out of all respect for the First Nations people. We all have a little First Nations in us, right? There's another thing here, and that is that in certain ancient cultures, this is where toxins are stopped. They can get caught in this area so that the body doesn't, if someone inadvertently gets something in the mouth that's not quite appropriate for the physiology, it can get caught at this area and then, pass back out again before the collective suffers from it. I'm seeing a lot of discordant feelings clearing. I'm seeing for some people actual calcifications or nodes of like little knots of discordant feelings against the spine that have actually hardened are clearing. Someone who doesn't feel like they're very, confident or successful, someone who feels they're successful. It's right there. That makes all the difference, right? Right there. It's the difference between this and this, yeah? And that's going to help the muscles and the connective tissue, the fascia up in the neck. It's going to help it soften up and lighten up. And I'm seeing the light. It's interesting. These stones were created as much by the air as by the water, as by the wind. The wind is, what I see here is a kind of a marriage between, in the deva, in the intelligence of these stones, is a marriage between the shape of the stones. They have their own little special shapes that they're making here, and then the shape of the air around them. And it's like a perfect marriage, right? The air, it goes into each little crevice, each little nook and cranny and crevice. It is in that gap between the solidity of the stone and the ethereal quality of the air that the manifestation of wealth, that the intelligence really lies. Oh, also the stone, deep in it, the stone has its own heart too. It's kind of, I guess they're layers. We could say they're layers of it. Oh, it's showing, it's revealing, it's opening up its beautiful soul and showing us. Thank you, Ma. Thank you, Mother Earth. It's so sweet when Mother Earth reveals herself and shows what she really looks like. And when that happens, it supports our ability to restructure our energy fields and our physiology so that we accommodate. We align. I'm seeing the elements in the stone. There's water. Oh, there's space. Wow. And the space, oh, it's very beautiful. This is really where the soul is, the soul of the Devata, of the mountain. It's in the space, and there's space all through the mountain. Even in what we think of as the densest part of the stone, there's still space. And there are spaces. There are caverns. They're cavernous spaces that hold the intelligence in a very profound way, in a sacred way. And in these spaces, inside these mountains, under these hills, there is a resonation which is responsible for the manifestation of all kinds of manifestations and all kinds of definitions of what the value of wealth or opulence or affluence. Because it's not, as we know, wealth doesn't really, money doesn't really get rid of poverty necessarily. Money doesn't get rid of poverty. And that's, credit where credit is due. I've been listening too much to Jordan Peterson. Most of you know I've been listening a bit to him. Not that I agree with everything he says, but because he doesn't understand consciousness the way we understand consciousness and energy healing, but he is so smart and he knows so much. And his story is about the social studies that have been done on very, very poor people. And what happens is often when they obtain wealth or they obtain money, it ends up undoing their lives, because it's not so much having the money that gives rise to quality of life. In one of his lectures I was listening to, he feels that intelligence has a lot more to do with creating quality of life than actual money. What do you do with your money once you have it? That's important. But I trust all of you. We're going in now. We were clearing blockages to, do you remember what that thing was that I said? I said, I'm saying this so I don't forget it later. Darn, I should have written it. Okay, don't worry, it'll come back. The other thing that we need, that as a tool, we have a clear connection here between the administration and then the working functions of the physiology. I'm just double checking everyone is clear, and in that clear space is coming the combination of inputs and outputs from the intelligence of wealth and creating wealth. Oh, that's nice. So anybody who comes in on the chat, by the way, people can see your names, and if you don't mind being seen. Oh yeah, he says he's seeing a man's face. I think this is it, right? Is that his skull? It's really a full, look at that, he's smiling. It looks like he's got his big cheek sticking up right there, and then that's the back of the cranium there, and he's got this lovely, very manly chin right there, and a nice nose. Nice heavy-duty eyebrow right there. Yeah, I see it. It's beautiful. And he's so happy. The fact that you see the smile, I love that, because what that means, oh yeah, this is important. What this means is that the deva of the Las Vegas area that has been holding on to this information for so long is just loving our attention with it. It is just loving it. How long do these intelligences sit in all over the world? Are places like this that have some special, intelligence for something or another, and they sit for centuries and centuries. Oh, thank you, Christabel. God bless you. You are such a resource to me. I love you. From the Pacific Rim, talking about clearing obstacles before and didn't want to forget it. Right. Yeah, we were clearing obstacles. Oh, maybe it was we were going to go back to clear karma? I think that might have been it. I'm going to make a note about that anyway, just so I don't forget. Thank you so much. Thank you for being brilliant. Yeah, I was going to say that the devata of the ability to manifest wealth, and one of the things that's starting to more reveal right now, as I'm realizing that we're forging a relationship, like this sweet, loving relationship with the intelligence, the sort of subtle intelligences of this Las Vegas area, is that intelligence is connected to other locations around the world, because there are other places. For example, there are places that just specialize in gold, and there are places that specialize in the wealth of joy Like, I remember reading the beautiful story of this woman who was over 100 years old, and she had lived through the encampments in Auschwitz. And she said that she had a little son at the time, and that people said to her, "How did you survive Auschwitz? Like, it was so difficult. And there you were with your little son." And she said, when the mother laughs, the child laughs. And the child doesn't know, oh, we're sleeping on concrete floors and we don't have enough food to eat and people are dying everywhere. It doesn't matter. She said, she would just laugh. And when she laughed, her little son would laugh. And together they experienced this deep happiness. It wasn't dependent on outside circumstances. And ultimately, one of her survival mechanisms was that she was a good musician. And she was called in to play the piano for, fancy people or whatever. Anyway, it was a nice story. But the point is that they're all different kinds of wealth. They're all different kinds of wealth. And this intelligence in this one part of Earth's structure is one of many, and it's connected to all the others. They're connected through the underground channels, the meridians of Mother Earth. All are connected. So as we are entering into a sort of sweet, intimate, loving relationship with this intelligence, with this life force, which resides in the Las Vegas area, we are also then embraced by the family. It's like in some parts of the world. I lived in Northern Australia for just a little while when I was a child, early childhood, about 6 months to 2.5 years, something like that, 2.25 years. And in that part of the world, Ayers Rock is there, and Ayers Rock is waking up. So we're now also drawing on information from Ayers Rock, thank you, which is an amazing thing. Like, think of it like a iceberg, that the part that's on the surface, which is big, is only representing part, and that actually under the earth, it's really big, and it has just this big, huge soul, and it has this, the laws of nature at Ayers Rock are for utilizing the capacity to interface different states of consciousness. So that means drawing on the capabilities of dream state into waking state, or sleep state into dream state, or vice versa, bringing the awareness of waking state into sleep state. It has this beautiful quality, and it's very powerful, as you know, because in dream state, we can do anything. You can go from rags to riches in an instant. You could fly, you can do anything, so that interface is important. But what I was going to say about the native peoples, so this is connecting. We're doing it. There's a lot of integration happening in the physiologies at delicate levels of the physiology right now. As I'm telling the story that in Northern Australia, the Aboriginal people, the Yuryorant, we were staying with these people called the Yuryorant, they have very elaborate kinship systems. So if you become friends with one of them, then you're automatically, if you become part of their kinship system. My parents were there with me as a little baby. And so someone said, oh, she's my sister. Well, when I became the sister to that little kid, then all of a sudden my parents became the aunts and uncles to that little kid. And then they were then therefore the brothers and sisters of that kid's parents, and so forth and so on. And then they just became, the kinship system is very integrated there. And of course they have different names for the kin than in America. There's like cousins. You have one kind of cousin. Over there, if your mother's son, or your mother's sister's son, would be a completely different name from mother's sister's daughter, which would be completely named from mother's brother's son or mother's brother's daughter, or so forth. So it's very elaborate. And that's more in tune with the way nature functions than, we've simplified it here in the West. Cousin, aunt, uncle, niece, nephew. Okay, that's good. First cousin, second cousin. It's pretty simple. But it's like a web. It's a web with these vast range of connections. So now I'm looking in a little more detail with everybody, because what I'm seeing, as soon as we went to the kinship system and then each individual has their own special spot in the web, it's like, oh, everybody in the group suddenly had their special position in the web. And the thing that's cool about the way this web is constructed is that each spot is absolutely brilliant. Each spot is like the best spot. It's so, but I'm looking at, with this download of more information of how we're working in our group. One of the things I'm seeing happening is individual work is happening for everybody in this group right now. Everybody's getting a little bit of personal healing work. And as that's happening, overall, what it looks like is downloads of information specific for each person's situation to in the bodies, because each person's body has like a little different mix of the elements, earth, water, fire, air, and space. Like everybody's physical body's a little different, everybody's nervous system's a little different, but this has to do with the quality of fire. And the fire quality is, it's an important quality for interfacing with wealth. As we know, the sun is a great resource of wealth manifestation, wealth and health manifestation. But going even our sun is somehow being brought into this healing. So the sun is also receiving blessing. And I feel that this is happening in part because the intelligence of the earth in this area is so grateful. It's so, I'm telling you, I'm feeling like so much bliss in the laws of nature of this Las Vegas area, and through the network of the family of earth devas all over the earth, to be appreciated, to be acknowledged, to be recognized. Our group is showing how powerful we each are by going and sitting humbly with gratitude at the feet of this deva and just attending to it. It's like we're washing it with our attention and our love. And it's just like, oh, this is so beautiful. So it's this love, what it's doing is offering that back to the mother of the universe. And when the earth, now we do this in our healing sessions all the time, right? You know, there's some clearing or some healing or some transformation, and we offer that back to the source of being. And when the healing just a minute ago was happening for everybody individually, that was happening. We were doing that. Each individual person's healing was coming in, and the downloads were coming in, and the adjustments were being made in the physiologies. And then that movement of consciousness was being offered back to the divine. But when earth offers it, it goes, the sun is also being blessed by the offering, because the earth really looks to the sun, and the moon too. It looks to these two forces in its world with such tenderness. And I'm seeing this increase of this very delicate, very tender, very sweet feeling between the intelligences in this network of manifesting knowledge. Like, think of them as archives of the details of how the manifesting process occurs in its most refined and perfect manner, its most appropriate manner, its most integrated manner. And from there, this sort of tender offering is going back to the cosmic bodies. And it's like what we have offered to the intelligence of the Deva of Las Vegas, spread out to all the other Devas, and then it's They are taking it, it's expanding. They're expanding it on our behalf. How beautiful is that? I'm just feeling that I'm offering that expansion, that love, just the same kind of gratitude and humility and tenderness that we give is being given to the sun and the moon. And from the sun and the moon, it's expanding out to the center of our galaxy, from the center of the galaxy to the center sun of the whole universe, all the way out, all the way out. The time. Oh, that's what it was. I was going to say something about time. Thank you. All the way out. When we start expanding out to the edges of the whole universe, the whole universe, we really get into a point where time and space are less limiting or bound than they are in our usual day-to-day experiences here on Earth. This offering, which keeps expanding out and then keeps getting given back to divine being, and then it's not isolating itself as, oh, it expanded and now I'm offering it to divine being. It's a flow. It's in the phase of a flow. And so the flow is being offered. That's like we hit a larger infinity. We hit a larger infinity. Now that larger infinity is being offered. And I'm feeling it reaching through time. There are downloads of information coming. There are vast resources of wealth. There's so much wealth. There is so much wealth. I feel as if we've reached a point somehow where our collective is no longer sitting so much just at the feet of the Deva of Las Vegas, but has gone to a deeper archive, a very, very vast, ancient archive. Wealth is expanding. Wealth is expanding. This is rewriting. This is where we are rewriting the rules by which wealth is created and obtained and utilized and distributed. So with the same humility and appreciation, I know this is silly, but we'll go ahead and have a cosmic view. How about a cosmic view? That one's nice. Thanks. Thanks, Marla. Yeah, we've come up to a bigger level now. Okay. To access the wealth in this ever expanding wealth. I mean, literally, we would be led to believe on Earth by the old paradigm that there's just a limited number of wealth on Earth, and 1% or 0.001% of the people on Earth have that wealth, and the rest of us can just like buck up. But it's not true. Don't believe it. Because wealth can be anything. Wealth can be redefined any number of different ways. The value of a penny. We are not limited. We are not limited by the definitions that we have been given by the old paradigm. There is a quality or a value of deep bliss that fuels creative thought. And this combination of this, when we think of bliss, we think of this sort of short-lived quality. You know how little kids, don't you love little kids? Like when they're like 2 or 3, you know, they're just ruled by their emotions, right? They're like incredibly happy. They're like rolling on the floor with happiness. And then they're like incredibly hungry and they're just like starving. And then you have to feed them. And then they get like really tired and they fall asleep in your arms. And then they wake up and, you know, it's like everything is, there are no filters. There are no filters. There are no filters. So when we think back to the level of that sort of permeating, that kind of bliss that permeates the body deeply, we tend to think back to that time when there were no filters and we were just like ruled by whatever was in our face at the moment. Now the nervous system is refined. Now the nervous system is myelinated and pruned. So part of the story with this part of the webinar is redefining the way bliss and creativity integrate into the physiology, the way they integrate into the mind and the being. What were we talking about before? Thought, action, thought, action, speech, and that was another one. Anyway, you get the idea. Feeling. That would be one. Thought, action, speech, and feeling. We were trained from a very early age to build up those filters so that we don't feel that bliss very much, so that we control it. You know, even when children are happy, their parents are telling them to be quiet. You know, so a lot of times, right? No, it's important. People need to be socialized. But some of those filters need to go. Not all of them. Of course, we still want to act in a way which is appropriate and acceptable and intelligent and precise and useful to ourselves and others. But internally, some of those filters got lodged deep, deep, deep in the system. I'm following the thread right here to see how deep. Nervous system, definitely. The throat was one of those spots where it got lodged. The solar plexus is another spot where it got lodged. For some people, the heart, but more the solar plexus. Root chakra, second chakra, root chakra. I'm looking if there are other spots. And seeing an area, looks like it's in the causal body. The causal body's here, this one. So you've got celestial body, collective body, and then causal body. And causal body, it's interesting that I'm seeing it rooted here because these filters stop us from, like it causes us to kind of like knee jerk back in. If you start to feel like really blissful, you know, like, whoa, good stuff, then it's like, oh, wait, maybe I shouldn't quite, you know, maybe that wouldn't be appropriate or something. The causal body, because it's at the level of the causal body that the mechanisms that really move consciousness into the field of manifestation. So moving, behavior. Oh, thank you. Thank you, my love. Behavior was one of them. God bless you guys. You're listening to me. I love that. So sweet of you. Oh, wait, here's another question. I missed this one. Sorry. The idea of using cutting-edge technology to create wealth is an old idea. Oh, yes, it is. Since the printing press, railroads, fossil fuels. Oh, absolutely. Have each, in their time, been the fast way to grow wealth? How is your idea different this time? Oh, good question. That's what ties into that point that I was going to make way earlier that I didn't mention before. And that has to do with time management. And it ties into this point that I made also earlier about where would we be if henceforth every behavior, thought, action, and speech, that was the fourth one, speech also, those four, yes, if we didn't make mistakes? What if we use technology to manage our time? What if this is what the people that were in Hendersons did? This is what I wanted to share with you. They did something that was kind of cool that like the other solar companies didn't do, right? What did they do? What they did was they used technology to monitor every single human function in their company. That means every act, every email they send, every sale they close, every spreadsheet they fill out, every time they spend doing accounting work, everything. And they fed it in, they created a computer program, they fed it into a computer program which monitored every single activity. And they looked at the trends over the course of time, and they noticed which activities were taking more time than others. And then they used the human factor. So they used technology to micro-monitor everything they were doing according to time. Then the human factor came in, they said, well, what's taking the most time? Oh, answering emails was taking the most, or whatever. And so then they go and they start thinking, well, okay, how can we use our creativity instead of thinking, how can we make our product less expensive for us and more expensive for the consumer, which is the old style of thinking. They said to themselves, how can we restructure time so that we are working more efficiently? And the brilliance, and I can't hardly even describe to you, because this is like the telephone game, right? It's described to me from people I know who work there, to me, and of what the top people in that company are doing. But basically what they've done is they've gone through and they've looked at their company in a completely different way. Instead of just thinking in terms of how can we turn maximum profit, they're thinking how can we utilize every second. And not just that, also they're looking at that both from the angle of time, but they're also looking at it from the angle of the individual interface between each individual person. By doing it under the time frame, they're looking at the interface of each person who works for their company with the company as a whole, right? That's what that is. If Joe over there is taking more time to do his job than Mary over here, because for some reason her job goes more efficiently, then everybody's going to focus. Now we're going to figure out how to make Joe as efficient as Mary. But they extended that one step further. How does their company then interface with the larger world? And that's where they're interfacing with like laws and the energy companies that already exist, and what are the policies and things like that. And they did the same thing at that level. And so that's how they were using technology differently. I hope that answers the question. Yes, yes, yes. So that's a beautiful point. Thank you, Michael. And he's saying that that is time and motion study, not new, but used better through technology. Yes. So energy work. How do we use the technology of energy work to do the time motion study more effectively? First of all, at the collective level of self, we have access to structures which are capable of modifying time, speeding it up, slowing it down, bending it, turning it. So now we're going in the collective of our group, and we're looking down to that level of the physiology, that level of self. For those of you who like the names, Lord Kalabhairava is one of the names for that level of self. It's a cosmic structure. So this is activating for everyone. This is just as we sat at the feet of the Deva of the mountain and we forged an intimate relationship. So now we forge an intimate relationship with this aspect of our own consciousness. with so much gratitude and so much humility, what's happening is all of us in our life at some point or another did some like procrastination type of activity or behaviors. And so we're clearing procrastination through the entire life stream this lifetime. Procrastination, digressions, distractions. Sometimes it's interesting about procrastination. It can even take this form where you have something really big that you need to do and it's hard and you're like, I don't know if I can pull together my energies to do that. So what you do is you do little other, well, this is also important over here. It's not quite as important as that big one, but I could spend a few minutes doing this other, like, less important thing to kind of buff myself up so I'm ready, kind of, you know, prime the pump a little bit, then I'll go over and do the big thing. The problem is you can find an infinite number of those little things. So, and it gives the illusion of, well, I'm doing something useful. Well, this is useful. The dishes needed to be washed. You know? We need to cut right to the chase. And what happened is, in the brain, certain neural pathways were etched into the brain that cause the individual to do that, to make that little switch, to go, well, I've got this great, big, huge, incredible thing. If I just do it now, I'm going to be set. But then we're getting distracted. So clearing those, we're going very, very delicate work. It's delicate work. So I'm going into my deep inner place to recognize and appreciate the like energy healer, just like the Lord of Time is there at the collective level. There's like energy healer intelligences in the collective level, the physiology, that are clearing away a lot of guilt, remorse. These are in these ridges, in the ridges, guilt and remorse, and 3 M's, which are kind of like a filtering type of energy. And as that clears, I'm feeling underneath it access to more energy. And I think just like the area of Las Vegas is actually called Henderson. So I think it's not a coincidence that this particular energy company has been factoring into today's webinar, because one of the resources that people are looking for when they're priming the pump up to, you know, to go after that big project, which they never get to because they're too busy doing the smaller projects, is energy. People have doubts in their own resource capacity. This is when we shift over and we don't do it. The Mother of the Universe does it. The Mother of the Universe is actually the organizer. Just like for the energy company, when they realized that they were making all these sales because they had the deadline coming up, and then the deadline got extended another month. Ooh. That's when everything's lined up so that every behavior and thought and word and action is going for the big one, going for the big fish, then what happens is nature comes up like a wind behind the individual and provides those little extra opportunities. They're like, oh, you've bit off something big. Well, here, let's make it bigger. So there's where that marriage is, that intimate relationship between individual, the antenna of the universe, the individual, the antenna of the universe, and the threads in the structure of creation that connect to the nodes where the wealth archives are located. And I'm seeing not just, like, when I say archives, it sounds like something that's static, you know, like knowledge in a book in a library, but it's not. It's living and moving. It's living and moving and sentient. And sentient. This is the important thing that we're doing tonight, is our connection to this very big, very, very big intelligence of wealth. And you know what that old saying, what you see, you become. What you see, you become, or what you see becomes more in your world. The seed of wealth has been given to everyone in this webinar. And I hadn't seen this seed before, you guys. I mean, I've seen templates and other things, but this is big. This is big. And it was because of you that I get to see it too. So I'm deeply grateful to get to be the mouth, to get to be the expressor of what happens. This quality of life force is so beautiful. And once a relationship is born, a sacred space forms to embrace that relationship. A sacred location where that relationship is held in and honored in its highest level, where all the laws of nature start to gather around the relationship to support its health and its growth. It's like a newborn baby. You know, then all the resources, all the neighbors come in and they bring food for the mommy, and the mommy's whole system is restructuring in order to accommodate being in the whole family, and everybody, the whole universe shifts when a baby is born. Tonight, we've seen a birth. We've seen a birth of our own relationship with this form of wealth, which is living. It's living form. It's a living form. It's ancient. I think there's probably a Vedic name. Any of you Vedic scholars out there? And this relationship is so precious that the integration of the relationship for each of us individually is happening, thank you, Ayers Rock, is happening not just in our waking state, but in dream state and sleep state. So the nervous system and transcendental state, of course, it's being offered back to the divine. And the stabilization of transcendental state with all the other states, and the expansion to infinity of the stabilization. This relationship, this beautiful, precious relationship, is integrating in the physiologies of everyone watching this video as an essential, identifiable quality of self. This is not something that you can run away from or sabotage. Maybe you could sabotage it. We have to clear sabotage. We need to clear sabotage because we don't want to sabotage a relationship. We want the relationship to be really, really healthy, right? We want all those resources. Thank you, Ma. The mother comes in and makes sure that things don't get sabotaged. She's saying this is her relationship. This is her own relationship through the antennas. The antennas are teensy. When I say antenna, I mean you. You are this little antenna of this relationship which is eternal, and you can't destroy it. You can't ruin it because it's bigger than you are, and yet it is an essential component of what you are. Wow. It's integrating, it's integrating, it's integrating, it's integrating. The integration needs to be protected so it also doesn't self-sabotage. So at the astral level of the physiology, that's the protective level of the physiology. And I'm also seeing it some at the causal level of the physiology. It's an activation or an enlivenment of particular structures at the causal and astral levels of the physiology. Oh, I'm glad we're doing this. And of course, we've come to our time. But that's okay because we're we're bringing it up into the dense levels of the being. At these levels, there's a restructuring, just like rerouting some of those little, those little places in the brain, restructuring the causal and astral bodies in order to support that relationship, in order to integrate the relationship so that one knows it as one's self. That glorious, beautiful energy frequency, that energy form, that life form becomes an intimate part of what we know ourselves to be. And in that state of knowing oneself, essential self, cosmic self, as completely integrated with this ancient wealth intelligence, we bow down, we offer all of our behavior and action and thought, and there was another speech. We offer it all back to divine being. Oh, there's a question. Oh yeah, look at this, Anonymous. I love you, Anonymous. Possible names: Kubera, Danha, Lakshmi. Thank you. Beautiful, beautiful names. Kubera, I think is what I was thinking of. Dahana, Lakshmi. Beautiful. All right, everyone. On that note, I am respecting and honoring everyone's time. I'm going to say goodnight. But thank you all for being with me. And a lot of us are doing the subscription program. So big shout out to everyone doing that. We will take off from here tomorrow and tomorrow morning we'll talk about, now this Kubera has been integrated in the 4 subtle levels of the physiology. So tomorrow we'll talk about integrating up to the 4 dense levels of the physiology and just blossom it forward right into the relative field of creation. Thanks, everyone. I really appreciate having everyone here. And again, it was a great privilege to do this. Good night.